Greetings, chess friends. Today, we're going to see some very exciting games and tell a little story about chess history from the perspective of Richard Reti. Now, you've probably heard the name, again, an opening named after him. Some nice tactics that he performed. I'm going to show here at the beginning. D6 with the wide pieces. Reti, not known historically as a tactician, but he was amazing. Really, I would say known for being one of the fathers of this hyper-modern school of chess, which I'm going to talk about. But let's look at this one. Rook E8. Hope I have your attention with that one. Of course, queen takes queen. Rook takes rook is checkmate. Easy to see that. If queen takes rook, that's what happened in this game. Knight F6. Bing, bang, boom. And black resigns. Most importantly here is queen takes pawn on H7 checkmate. Really a nice one. You've seen this one most likely. White plays castles. Reti Tartakower here, 1910. And after knight takes knight, not a blunder, queen D8. Brilliancy. King takes is the only legal move. Bishop G5, that's double check. And remember, the king always has to move on double check. King C7 and bishop D8. Backing into checkmate. Beautiful finish there, I think we've all seen. So now you know Reti a little bit. Grandmaster from the early part of the 1900s. One of the best players in the world. But one thing he did very differently was he thought about chess as the pieces are the way you should control the center. So let's talk about that more in a second. One last tactic here. I like this one a lot. Very unique chess tactic here. So pay attention. E4. All seems normal enough. Knight d4, that makes sense. Hitting the queen, hitting the pawn. But this one actually is a little more detailed. Queen takes a5, hits the bishop. After knight e2, now there's a lot of things hanging here. Notice the rook, the bishop, this rook. But the move which Reti must have foreseen, which keeps everything in balance, and white absolutely busted, after b6. A quiet, defensive move, guards the rook and the bishop at the same time, and attacks the queen, which has to move. And then we collect this rook. White completely lost. An amazing defensive tactic there. Next game here, Reti officially playing the Reti, knight f3. All of his games seem to have this similar type of feel to them, at least a little later in his career. Started off, that famous queen d8 move was from an e4 game, but later he started playing more of these Catalan Reti type setups. Like I said, he really believed that putting the pawns in the center was not necessary. That was the rule of Steinitz, the first world chess champion, and there were players that started to challenge that wisdom. Nimzowitsch, Reti, and Tartakower also, I believe, were players that said, no, don't worry about it. The center with pawns, you put your pawns in the center, I'll attack them with my pieces. Look at this position here. Resembles almost the Sicilian setup here with the white pieces, though. Very nice structure and safe. Things are good, and Reti always kind of played like this, not looking to lunge in the center so quickly. Of course, he understood the importance, but it wasn't as urgent. Almost in a Magnus-like way, you could say, where he doesn't care about the openings, so to speak. I think that might be an oversimplification of Magnus's greatness, but anyway, c5. Here we go. Reti on the attack. That move is kind of counterintuitive to what I was just saying, but he was a sharp tactician. And when you play, let's call them unambitious openings, where you just double fianchetto and you're not playing to win quickly, you really do need to be a good tactician, endgame player, middle game player, as it will make up for the openings. E takes d4. Just to point out, if you had taken this pawn, white would have taken this pawn. The game gets messy, but all variations are in white's favor. So takes on d4, cd6, knight c4. I really like this game, actually, as it just ends abruptly. But here you see, again, notice white's position. No pawns in the center. Okay, white has all pieces doing the heavy lifting. And still, bishop, bishop, knight, knight. Really interesting strategy. A4, knight takes. And now white has those two bishops. And I really like what he does with them. Bishop h3. Look at that. Crisscrossing the black position. It's very difficult to deal with these bishops in an open position. Remember, there's no pawns in the center. This game is over in just 5 more moves. Rook d6, an exchange. Our last piece comes into the game. Rook d1, remember, use more pieces. Queen c7, and I love this one. Always looking for exchanges. That's one theme I noticed about Reti in preparing for this video. He was always looking for these minor piece exchanges. Sounds so simple, but a lot of times a move like that will lead to a tactic. So here it is. The knight has to take, because the rook was also watching that. Queen could not. And knight d5. An alert move based on the pin along the c-file. Cannot capture this. And really, black is busted here. Any queen move is losing. Let's just show the game was queen takes a5, knight e7 check, and black resigns. Rook takes knight is coming, and that will just put white up a piece, and the attack continues. If you had moved your queen anywhere else, it does not help. Queen c8, the worst of all. Knight e7 picks up the queen. Queen d8, perhaps knight b6, hitting the rook and the knight, which is pinned to the queen. There's just no safe square, and this game is over. Let's jump into the middle of another game here from the Chess Olympiad in 1927. And here, again, Reti, we're 10 moves into the game, has no pieces across the 4th rank. So that's, again, indicative of what we said, but you do notice those long bishop diagonals, the knights ready to attack on the queen side. Not a checkmating attack, but let's see how this one goes. Castles, bishop g5, our first piece to cross the center of the board. And again, this game is over in 5 more white moves. Incredible. Castles, rook d1. That's not just developing a piece. That's a real threat. Can you see the threat white has? We're pressuring the bishop, which is guarded by this knight. So all we have to do is capture this knight. Capturing the knight would remove the defender, and then this bishop on d7 unprotected. Black needs to guard that, which he does. But bishop takes knight anyway comes, and Reti was so alert, again with the minor piece exchanges. Notice, next move, a tempo move, knight d5. Again, we're jumping into the weaknesses. Similar to the last game here, our knight is so centralized. Rook b8, knight c5. I love this move. Really, really accurate, precise. He played king f8 in the game, but as always, we have to ask, what if they take? Really not that hard to see. This pawn is now unprotected, and it comes with check. But the kicker here is that that's not just a free pawn that white won, but there's even more coming. Hitting here the bishop and rook, and there's really no other way. You can't play king f8 the same. This bishop is always getting taken, and it's just getting worse. White wins. So he played in the game king f8, but that doesn't help. Knight takes f6 anyway, and black resigns. Isn't that really interesting? I mean, the game here, move 11, castles, and move 17, resigns. Move 11, like this. It's almost as if the pieces are spring-loaded here with no pawns to obstruct them. Very interesting chess style. And the hypermodern school of chess, I should mention, is correct. Of course, they were right. Both players were right. Putting your pieces in the center is good. Putting your pawns in the center is good. But it just, again, opened up a whole new avenue and possibilities in the chess openings, chess theory, and chess just kept evolving. So here, again, Reti with the white pieces. His opponent in this one, von Gottschall, I'm probably messing up the pronunciation, but he was maybe an editor or the head of a chess publication, I read, and a young Reti submitted some chess puzzles, some compositions, and his opponent in this one, previous years, had said, keep working on your chess, young man, something like this. Well, I think he's going to show him how much he's been working. I really like this game specifically for the beautiful symmetry of it. A harmony, almost. Knight takes knight. Sometimes you don't want to capture and release the pressure here, but e4. Can you feel just the symmetry? Harmony is really the best word that comes to my mind. But just the wonderful control of everything. It's just nice to see, almost poetic in a way, the organization of white in this game. So queen c2. I find beauty in the simplicity. f4, that slows down black's counter chances, stopping e5. That square is under white's control now. Rook a d1. I find a real beauty in these simple moves. Knight f3. and rook e1. Again, the symmetry and simplicity is actually how chess is supposed to be played. The creativity part is also there and all based on logic. But you can feel after seeing many games that black has this miserable backwards pawn. The bishop can't make many moves. Rooks, no open files. White has all the positional positives. Even though the material's equal, all chess masters would take white here. Bishop e8, looking for some breathing room. Knight e5. Central, simple, protected. Again, everything working. And black just lashes out, which is often the case as you're slowly squeezing your opponent. They feel the walls closing in, and g5 is a reaction to that. F takes g5. It's only human nature. As you feel the walls closing in, you tend to panic. Queen e2, another excellent move, stopping the bishop from coming out here, eyeing the king side, and perhaps the e6 pawn as well. Bishop f6, bishop f3. Engine doesn't love it, but a natural move, also thinking about going this way. King h1, wait a minute. Change of plans. Now it might be clear that he's going to use the g file. Black understood as well and tucked the king away. c5, d5. Beautiful pawn chain still. The bishops, again, crisscrossing the board, and the rooks on the central files. That's what I mean about the just poetic organization of this game. Beautiful. Rook d6 and g4. This is an excellent move, g4. Finally, kind of cashing in, starting the real attack. Often the pawns lead the way. Maybe not always in Reti's games, but this one they do. The next move really puts black in a bind, and that is queen f4, the very best move. Not only do we support this knight, and now that means the rook is free for active duty, coming over to the g file, and this black king is not going to be safe at all. White's king, despite being in the same position, it's more about where the pieces are placed. White's king is quite safe. King g8, not a fun move to play. Bishop g6, just trying to cover up like a boxer with nothing to do. White is completely winning here and just looking for the knockout blow. Knight takes knight, and that just wins a free piece. In the game, he played knight takes, and queen takes a free minor piece, and black resigned. But there's really nothing to do here. If you tried to make an in-between move, such as bishop takes bishop, all we have to do is move the knight here. So, for example, knight takes f8. That threatens the queen, and there's nothing left to put in the way. So I really like this game. Again, simplicity, harmony, pawn structure, organization, very clean game. Okay, let's see the one you've been waiting for. Now, I want to set the stage for everybody. This is 1924, the Roaring 20s in New York City. Capablanca, the world chess champion, had not lost one tournament game for over 8 years. That included the World Championship match, taking that title from Lasker, the longest running world champion ever, still to this day. Kappa had not lost a game in 8 years. In comes Reti with his own opening, knight f3. And Kappa, the real positional master here, g6, a good move, was already shocked by b4. How could this player break principle like this, not controlling the center, an almost laughable move to the legendary Capablanca? Bishop g7, bishop b2. Of course, you need to get this bishop on the diagonal as quickly as you can. That's the point. But b4 is going to give us some interesting structures. And remember, Reti wasn't so concerned with pawns in the center as many of his predecessors were. Bishop g2, and the double fianchetto you see again. Quadruple fianchetto, we should say. d6, d3. And although b4 looked a bit out of place at the time, it really doesn't anymore. This is organized and compact pawn structure. Knights coming out, e5 in the center, queen c2. Again, white's organized and well developed. a3, knight f1, and b5. Really nice pawn structure again by white. That's a hallmark of strong players for the last more than 100 years. But eventually here, the game opens up after d4. I really wouldn't pay much attention to the question mark there, as this is, again, an older game. Maybe calculation or engine calculation today is a bit beyond them, but we're not worrying about that as much. Black here, a tiny bit better, but a complex, intense position. All pieces are still on the board. At this moment, there have been no trades of any pieces. C takes d4. Bishop takes d4. Queen takes e4. Black now a pawn ahead, but that's not the end of the story. After capture, capture, queen check. I think here maybe he was expecting queen takes d6, kind of just counting on material, but maybe queen b2 came as a bit of a surprise. A check, and then taking with the rook. So that kind of changes the game a little, as this rook is able to now double and team up with this rook. And those are a very formidable team, and they're going to be more active than the black rooks. Queen c5, and this is kind of the beginning of a poorly timed maneuver, let's call it, by Capablanca. And he really gets his queen kind of trapped in this one. Knight e3, another hallmark of Reti, rerouting the knight. Now it does spring to life in the center. Again, I want to remind everyone, Reti was not oblivious to the importance of the center. He just thought the early stages of the opening didn't require putting your pawns in the center. So he understood. Our rooks are centralized and coordinated. Our queen cutting through the black castle. Here, this knight is under attack, and this needs to be addressed. He plays knight d4. Bishop takes, king takes. You could not take with the knight here, as queen takes d1 check would be a horrible mistake and actually mate coming. So king takes was the only move. Queen e5, and again, many queen moves here, and this queen really starts to get surrounded. Notice the rook out of place, this knight out of place, just not the harmony of black's position that white has. Overall, that's one thing I really did notice in the games of Reti, was this harmony, a real deep understanding of the organizational patterns, just the structures, the way your pawns need to be, alert for tactics, a really cool style. Again, without tremendous opening knowledge. Although the Reti still today is a common choice. So that rook was hanging. Rook c7. Let's get back to the game. Knight e3, knight e5, and rook 1 to d5. This move caused the world chess champion to resign. Capablanca, again, hadn't lost in years, was thought to be unbeatable. I mean, just an aura of a player, unbeatable. And again, even when he did lose the title 3 years later to Alekhine, that was no easy match and was not a foregone conclusion. So he was not necessarily the worst player, a close match. So, wow, Reti, really impressive. And finally here, folks, let's just do a tiny preview of his, if you're still with us, let's do a little preview of his famous chess puzzle. This might be the most famous puzzle in the world. Richard Reti composed this puzzle. It is white to move and draw. The white pawn is going up. The black pawn is going down. And I'm going to make another video on just this little puzzle because it is so famous. So I will tease that now, and you should set that up on your chessboard at home. Try to figure it out. White to move and draw. Thanks again, and we'll see you soon.